Your Bibles to 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. And while you're turning there, let me just let you know that we are meeting for an Israel information meeting today after second service. So if you want to go grab a cup of coffee or grab lunch or run an errand and come back after second service, we're going to meet at 12:30 right here in the youth room in this back hallway. And no commitment needed, but if you're even remotely, vaguely interested or intrigued in going with us to Israel this year at the end of August, early September, we'd love to have you. And of course, you'd be welcome to join us for a meeting just to get more information about what that trip looks like and what it's all about and what it entails. So I wanted to let you know about that meeting as well. And we're gonna do something different this morning because as we shared last week, we were eager to let you know about our trip to Africa. And I have a very specific prayer for this morning, and that is that I'm praying and asking that God would connect our hearts as a church to the mission there. I think many of us might not even know of the good work that God has allowed us to be a part of in different parts of the world. And so we want to share that with you this morning, not just as information, random information, but again, really praying that God would connect our hearts as a church to this mission. Mike and I, as many of you know, just were in Kenya a couple of weeks ago checking up on the work there. And man, it's a good work. It's an incredible thing that we get to be a part of what God is doing. And so we want to share that with you, and hopefully God will knit our hearts to that work. You know that a couple of years ago, we shared with you the vision for our church. The purpose for our church is to love God, love people, and serve and reach the world. And so again, it's not just something random that we want to share with you, but really central to who we are and who we believe that God has called us to be a church that's serving and reaching the world. And we have this incredible opportunity to do that in Kenya. The reason I wanted you to just read these verses in 2 Thessalonians because there's something about the early church and what we read about it that connects us again in a very direct way to what we get to do today. So look with me at these verses, 2 Thessalonians, beginning in verse 1, and we're just going to read through verse 4. And then I'm going to invite Mike to come up, and we're going to share some things with you this morning. But here's what Paul writes. Paul, Silvanus, and Timothy to the church of the Thessalonians, in God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. We ought always to give thanks to God for you, brothers, as is right, because your faith is growing abundantly and the love of every one of you for one another is increasing. Therefore, we ourselves boast about you in the churches of God for your steadfastness and faith in all your persecutions and in the afflictions that you are enduring. You know, as we've been studying through Paul's letters in the New Testament and to the Thessalonians specifically, you'll remember how this part of the New Testament came about. It was because Paul would travel from place to place across the world that was known then. He would travel great distances by ship, sometimes by foot, all different methods and means. But Paul would travel because he wanted to spread the gospel, the message of Jesus, and make disciples. Because that's what Jesus has called us to do. That's the purpose of the church. Go into all the world, proclaim this good news, and make disciples, teaching people to obey all the things that I've commanded you. And so that vision for our church, love God, love people, serve and reach the world, that's two things for us to think through significantly. One, it's the definition of a disciple. What does it mean to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus? I think to sum it up, it means that we're growing constantly in our love for God, in our love for people, and that love for God and others is being expressed as we serve and reach out to the world. But that's also, I think, the description of the process. It's not only the description of a disciple, but the process of how we go about making disciples. And so serving and reaching the world is fulfilling the commission that God's given to us, the purpose that he's given to us. But sometimes that purpose feels so big, right? I mean, love God, love people, serve and reach the world. That's massive. How do you begin to really enter into that in a practical and tangible way? And by the way, that purpose, that vision, we're never going to get to the end of that, right? It's not like we're ever going to gather on a Sunday morning and be like, we did it. We loved God, we loved people, and we served and reached the whole world. Now what do we do as a church? Like, that goes on forever. That's a huge, massive purpose that goes on until Jesus comes, right? That's the only time we know we're going to be done with that work. And so again, that can feel so big. That can feel so, in a way, significant, but also kind of vague, like, okay. And so within that big purpose, we can have smaller missions that serve the purpose. All right, so think of it like a war, this conflict. Any of the wars that you've studied in history, these big conflicts that went on for years, and yet within that purpose, within the conflict itself, were small and specific missions that fulfilled the objective of the purpose. Or think of it like NASA, right? NASA has the purpose. It exists to explore space. But that's infinite. That's huge. They'll probably never get to the end of that. So within that, they have specific missions, right? We're wanting to get to Mars. We're wanting to explore certain and specific places as we reach out into that purpose. And it's the same for the church. In a way, the purpose that God has given us is huge and it's ongoing and will never be to the end of it until he comes. But within that, we can identify specific missions that he calls us to, that we can be involved with, that serve the purpose. And I think the work that we have the opportunity to do in Kenya is one of those missions. And it's a good work that God has called us to there. And why I love that in the context of our study to the Thessalonians is it just means that we get to be a part of the same church and the same work that Paul was, right? Paul reaching around the world, getting in relationship with other believers, and then really caring about how they're doing. And so Paul would visit them, and Paul would send representatives to visit them when he couldn't visit them, and he would write them, and he would take up offerings for them because Paul was really invested in seeing them do well. And that's no different than this work. That's what excites me about sharing it with you, is it's like, here we are with an opportunity to be the church, to send people to faraway places with reports of how the brothers and sisters are doing there, people that God has connected us to in relationship, and we get to be a part of that work. It's really exciting. So Mike, would you come up, and we're going to just share with you a little bit about what we got to see and what we got to do, and again, praying this morning that God would connect all of our hearts to the mission and the purpose that he has for us. So, you all know Pastor Mike?
Hi, everyone.
He's the guy that came back with his beard. I lost mine in Kenya. He kept his. But Mike, this was your first time in Kenya. I've been before, although it had been 6 years since I had been over there. And maybe just share with everyone, as our missions pastor, some of your kind of initial impressions of that place and of the people over there.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, if I could pack all of you guys in a suitcase with me next time, I would bring everyone with me to experience it. It the landscape and the beauty of the country itself was great, but what really touched me was the people. The people had so little, but what little they had, they were so open and generous to share. And it really, it made me think of how different the people in my sphere of influence would be if I was half as generous with the resources that I have as they are with the resources that they have. And it really put into perspective a lot of things for me as far as what I can be generous with. It was just an amazing experience to see people give so much. And the cool thing was that there was a language barrier some of the time, but like I shared at the 8:30 meeting this morning, language aside, the acts of love and generosity through what God has done and how he's changed their hearts and how they act towards people, not just us as outsiders visiting, but to everyone around them, was just incredible. It was a very eye-opening experience for me to realize that I don't have to have a lot to be generous with. I just have to be generous with whatever I've got. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so it is really amazing. And the country itself is beautiful. I was expecting when we go and we land to see giraffes and rhinos and stuff. Okay, that was blown out of the water, but we did see some baboons on the side of the road, which was kind of odd to me, but it was normal for them, so that was kind of cool too. Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about, here you can see on the screen where Kenya is. Maybe we could put up the map, because there's two places specifically that we have a work that we're connected to, and where that little red dot is in Kihancha, where there's a church and a pastor that we've known for, over 15 years at least, maybe more now, Pastor Solomon. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about the opportunities that you saw in Kihancha.
Yeah, in Kihancha, so they've got, what he's done is he's got a hub. The church there is a hub for ministry throughout Kenya. And so he's got a church there. Him and his son work side by side. One of his son's name is Solo. And so his son really plays a pivotal role in the ministry. They kind of do it all. They do worship together. That's him there. And so they've got a church, and from that church, they have planted 5 other churches that go out throughout Africa, throughout Kenya. And what they want to do is they also want to have conferences so that they can call other pastors and leaders to come. They want to have us come and do conferences so that we can come and train them with specific curriculum and be able to send them out and plant more churches to reach more people throughout Kenya. And so the church building is there. It's being built slowly. But that's kind of the opportunities there to use that church in Kihancha as a hub for a lot of the ministry that's happening through them in Kenya.
There's some people here this morning, Tim, and I don't know if Art is here. Others, if I forget, I'm sorry, but some of you helped build some of those bricks and do the work at a work trip that we took a couple of years ago. And so that work is ongoing. It's slow going in Kenya. And one of the cool things when we were there, Solomon was telling us about these pastors and these churches that have gone out. And we said, well, next time we're here, can you invite them to come? We would love to sit with them and meet with them and encourage them. And he said, yeah, they'll be here Saturday. So which was really cool because the Lord just set it up. And we actually have a little short video clip of a meeting that we got to spend going through Acts 20, talking about the essentials of ministry, where Paul was sharing with the Ephesian elders and just worshiping with them. So check this out.
zaidi zaidi zaidi, mimi nimfahamu Yesu, nijue pendo lake na wokovu wake. Nataka nione Yesu, nataka nione Yesu, na nizidi kusikia anenapo.
So that was a really sweet time that we got to spend with those pastors. And maybe you could share, Mike, a little bit about the heart. You've already touched on it, but what's really the heart of the work that we're a part of there in Calvary?
Yeah, so the local church there it's this vibrant, thriving church, and what they're doing there is, to us, it's normal. Like, we go through Calvary Chapel, we go through the Bible book by book, verse by verse, and they're actually doing the same thing over there, which to that culture is very foreign, and so they're doing the same kind of thing. And it's this vibrant center of ministry where people are coming and they're getting training. Solomon has a library of resources that he has available for people to come and to read and to use. And it's not huge by any means, but it's probably the most extensive library with resources in all of Kenya that anybody has for training and resources. And so people come and they get trained, and then they get sent out, and then they start churches and they minister to people. One of the really cool things is that they also ministered locally too. So there was a boy, I don't even think that he had family with him there. I think he was just this little boy that came to church in his Sunday best, and they gave a time for praise reports. And this little boy got up and he actually gave his praise in English rather than in Swahili so that we could understand. And he's a little boy that's afflicted with AIDS, and they're ministering to him and to other families and children like him. And so I wanted to show you this brief video of him.
That one's just a picture.
Is that just a picture? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So what he did is he got up and he sang a song and he shared. And it was like a little Billy Graham on fire for the Lord, man. He was going at it, and he was just praising God. And it was incredible to see that they're ministering. The church there is ministering to people like that don't have family. They don't have any connection to anybody but the church. Like, the church is his family. And without them, nobody knows what would happen to him. Like, this is his family, and in a way it broke my heart because there's so many others like him, but then it really encouraged me too, because the church is doing what the church is supposed to do, right? They're meeting the needs of the least of these, and they're ministering to the people that the rest of their culture kind of puts to the side and says, you have no value, you have no meaning. And it was great to be a witness to that and to see that we get to be a part of that. Like, we here get to be a part of what's going on there. And it was just an amazing time for me to, if I could, like I said, if I could bring you all with me, I would, because you could not visit there and experience it and not come back full and come back so grateful for what we do have and so eager to be a part of what they're doing over there. And it's so simple, like something so simple. You mentioned the building, right? And so they took an offering, like they took an offering, a special offering for the building fund. They do it. They have what's called the chief something officer, I forget the term, but it was like somebody that gets everybody excited to donate for the building fund, right? Once a month. And so it was this lady's turn. And so she got up and she's like, all right, who's gonna give? Who's gonna give? Yeah. And she's like cheering everybody on. And so they gave everything they could. And it was $60. Like, that was their huge thing, right? And I say that to say that, like, their heart is so generous and their heart is to give, but their resources are so limited, right? $60 was this big, huge thing. And so when I think about that, like, the part that we can play is so small, but it's so impactful of how we can impact them for not just the immediate, but for eternity. Like, it's amazing to me. Yeah.
When we say the church is vibrant there, I wanted to show you a little video clip of them worshiping. And I want you to just think of this in comparison to our worship this morning.
What you don't know is that was probably about 2.5 hours into the service already. That was before anybody spoke. That was just going on for about 2.5 hours.
Church started at 9 a.m. and they asked me to bring the message that morning, and I went on at about 12:15. No jokes.
Incredible.
And I taught for 3 hours, which was epic. So. No, but it's like a Casio funky keyboard, dirt floors.
They had to get somebody to come in and water the floor before the service so that the dust wouldn't kick up from the dancing.
And all of the sides and the roof are just sheet metal. So you're just in there baking for hours. Dancing and singing, and it was amazing. It was truly incredible. And so, maybe, Mike, I know that the needs are unlimited, right? This is kind of the immutable law of ministry and mission. So the needs are unlimited, but what are some of the specific ways that you saw we can link arms with them?
So specifically, the building that you saw with the small walls and the foundation and whatnot, we asked Pastor Solomon how much it would cost to complete that, and that's going to be a 2-level structure. With offices and rooms for ministry and everything. This is a rendering of what it would look like. And to complete that whole thing, to make their dream building a reality, it would be $70,000, right? And to them, that's like I know it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but to them, it's like millions and millions of dollars. And so $70,000 would give them their dream building, which would help them to function more effectively and efficiently as a hub of ministry for the entire country of Africa, or country of Kenya, sorry. And then also, he's asked for people to come over and do training. So for us to create a curriculum that they can use to train different pastors and leaders to go out and be ministers within Kenya. And so if anybody out there has a gifting in creating curriculum or writing, come and see me, because I would love to talk with you about putting together some kind of curriculum that we can go over. And if you have a gifting of teaching, we want to send a team over probably once a year to do conferences where they can call these pastors and leaders to come and get training and then mobilize and go out and reach people for Jesus. And so the conferences and curriculum, the building, and then also eventually probably some kind of a team to do work, to go over with the resources to help with the church, and then actually buy the materials and bang it out. The great thing is they have a lot of people that are willing to do work for free. Like they met an engineer that was giving them the plans for the church, and he said to Solomon, pay me X amount of dollars when I come per day for the day, and then X amount for my services. And so he came that day. He said, okay, don't pay me for the services, just pay me for my day here. And then eventually it ended up that the guy ended up saying, okay, I'm going to give you all my services for free, and I'm going to start coming to the church. And so like they've got a free engine. Like, it's just crazy. They've got people baking bricks. Like, you think, oh, you just go to Lowe's and pick up a ton of bricks or whatever construction people do. I don't know. But they have to bake the bricks. Like, you drive down the road and there's these little things on the side of the road where there's just smoke coming up, and they're baking bricks out of the dirt. Well, they've got people that are going to do that for them. They've got laborers. They've got all of these people. They just need the materials to be able to do it. So, that $70,000 would go towards that, which would, I think, not only bless them, but it would give them an opportunity to reach so many more people for the Lord. So, eventually sending some people over there to help bake bricks, I guess, and do other stuff that construction people do. I don't know.
So if anybody's a brick baker, come and see us.
I could push a wheelbarrow. But they need that too. So
Art, they remembered you.
Yeah.
They're like, who was the old guy that was the hardest worker we've ever seen? And Tim, they remembered you too, and just send their love and their greetings. So appreciative of the teams that have gone over. And so just to summarize, what to be praying about. The needs are unlimited, but if God would put it on your heart, our hearts, to give towards that building fund, they can work, and they do. There's so many things but to raise money. Segundo, you're famous over there.
Oh my
Everywhere
gosh, yeah.
we went, they're like, where's Segundo?
I'm going to wear a shirt next time that says, I heart Segundo, and I'll get so much. It's amazing.
Yeah. So if God would put it on your heart at some point, not today, but we'll take up a special offering, but would love for you to pray about if God would put that in your heart to give towards that, and then to go be a part of a Bible teaching curriculum team that could be a part of the conference, and to go be a part of a work team that could serve alongside them in building their church. It's great ways that we can link arms with them. So the other place that we went is about a 3-hour drive and then a 1-hour ferry ride out into Lake Victoria. Yeah.
Can I just say, when he says 3-hour drive, it's not just like a 3-hour drive. It's like I'm in the back of the car and my Apple Watch thought I was working out. It told me I completed my circles.
It's a little rough.
It's a 3-hour drive.
It's a little rough.
So when he says it's a 3-hour drive, I just had to put that in there. Sorry.
Yeah. So we drove to Mbita Point on Lake Victoria and then took a ferry, which this is the first time we rode the ferry. Usually we ride the canoe. So it was kind of cool to ride the ferry.
I tripped over bags of cement and stuff. It was cool.
And that little dot in Lake Victoria borders 3 or 4 countries in Africa. Kenya just has a little portion of it. But on Mfingano Island is another work that we support, which is a group of students that are in great need. And maybe you could talk a little bit about the opportunities at Mfingano.
Yeah, so we have a great opportunity on Mfingano to sponsor students at a Christian school, and it was amazing to see these little kids, just the joy and the excitement. Not many people have tattoos there, and so I think when I went, all the kids were trying to rub stuff off of my arms, so it was really cool. They were like, oh, it was really neat, but it was just it was an amazing opportunity to just connect with kids and see the joy of the Lord and just the spirit of happiness that they have. Again, they have so little. A lot of them are orphans. A lot of them are with families that are have like nothing, they literally live in like tiny little huts with thatched roofs, and they take showers by going down to the river and collecting these big buckets of water and then pouring water, like things that I guess for me, I thought, okay, well I guess that's how people there live. I don't know. But then to actually see it, it puts it into perspective. Like there's people in the world that live like that, and that's like like Zach killed a chicken for dinner, and that's a normal experience for them. They just go out, and they're wandering around, they just pick up dinner, defeather it, and cook it. Like they don't go to the supermarket. They don't have that. And it was just incredible for me to like, it gave me this whole perspective of like, not only how blessed I am, but how thankful they are for the little that they have.
We're not going to show you that video.
I haven't. Yeah. So we have the opportunity to sponsor kids in a primary school there, which it's incredible because I don't know if I'm going to go to the heart of it right now for me, it really, as somebody who's adopted a child through the foster care system from a parent who was an addict, and I think about this every day when I see my little Sophie, is we have the opportunity to change someone's trajectory of their life for eternity, right? Like through giving a measly, whatever, I mean, I sound like an infomercial, but like a measly $35 a month changes this person's life, and not only this person's life, but the life of their family for eternity, because they're able to get their needs met and get an education. Like, it blows my mind that I can give so little to change someone's life so much. And we have the opportunity to do that through sponsoring a child, because education for them is like the holy grail of all things that they could get. Like that gets them out of poverty. It gives them an opportunity to be so much more than they could be if they didn't have an education. And it to us, it's okay, $35 a month. That's not that's like 5 Starbucks, whatever. But to them, it changes their life and their family's life and their relatives and their future family. It changes their lives forever. And it just brings it to light to me that, we have the opportunity to partner with them, and I think not only the opportunity, but the responsibility, because we've been given so much that we should be good stewards of what we've been given and help them. So, yeah.
At one point, over 40% of the island's population was impacted and infected with AIDS. And so it was a real crisis in Kenya and in Africa as a whole, but this place, Mfangana Island specifically, has a population, the estimates vary, but of about 26,000 people. And so that's like over 10,400 of the 26,000 that were infected with AIDS. So when we first got involved there years ago, and I just want you to know, I want God to link our hearts to the mission there, because we're the only ones working with this school. This church built the school, built the dorms where the kids stay, and it started with Felix, a man that had 6 kids of his own, but saw the impact of AIDS on his island. He was a pastor of a church, and he took 6 other orphans into his mud hut with his 6 kids. And when we got connected to him, he just said, I have a heart for these kids. And so we started helping him. And then he said, I don't just want to give them a handout. If there was a way they could get an education, it could change their lives. And so the school was built and the dorms were built. And now there's hundreds of kids whose lives have been changed and are being changed by this church. Nobody else, Compassion International, nobody else is working in this part of the world. This is a unique opportunity that we have. And so there's 58 students that need sponsorship. And that's a way that we can link arms in the work in Kihancha. And so we're going to put those opportunities out Not today. We're giving the people that have been participating in the donorship program the first dibs, because some of the kids have graduated out and they want to switch over. But for the ones that still need sponsorship, many of them you're seeing on the screen, there'll be an opportunity for anybody who wants to get involved and to be a part of that work. It's really an incredible work, you guys. And I think sometimes when you're in the middle of a work, you get familiar with it and you're like, oh yeah, it's just the work we're doing. But I took Pastor Danny with me to the city ministry prayer meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was just before we left for Africa, and they were grilling us. What are you doing in Africa? What do you do over there? And I was answering all their questions. This is what we do. And Danny walked away and said, man, sometimes when we're doing the work and we're dealing with the problems, you can lose sight. And he said, but when you were answering the questions and telling the guys what we're doing, it's like, it's amazing, this work that we get to be a part of. And you got to see it for yourself. And so we hope and we pray that God will connect all of our hearts in some way to this mission of serving and reaching the world. And whether that's praying, whether that's giving, whether that's going, whether that's caring, there's so many ways I think that God can connect us to this. So Mike, would you pray for us? And we're going to prepare our hearts to come to the table this morning. And so let's do that.